Hey guys, I'm Andrei, a certified translator and a real estate concierge, and this is once in 10 days update about how things are in Belarus and around us. More like a point of view of a biased local who feeds on rumors of rumors and occasional headlines that one sees on the web rather than actual relay of facts. But some of the facts relayed may actually be handy to you in your travel planning or in some other kind of planning. In fact, just infotainment or entertainment, nothing about information, enlightenment or anything like this. Let's see what happened lately and let's see what kind of headlines we're getting. By now, I guess you all know that Belarus lifted all the COVID requirements of any sorts. For a while, we didn't really have any masks or any places closed down for the pandemic or anything like this. And since recently, since late May, I believe, PCRs were lifted to enter the country. And right now, it's only required to have them when you're going to Russia from Belarus, which is not a frequent case with most of you guys. So you needn't worry. If you're planning a trip to Belarus, the worst thing would be to work out the logistics because the visa-free flights via Istanbul are a little bit costly. If you wish to fly on the last minute, it's going to cost €1,000, give or take. Visa-free mode through Western Belarus works as well, or to Western Belarus. Grodno and Brest make a visa-free region, which allows one to visit it for 10 days essentially, with the supportive paperwork, which is not too much a stretch to get. So again, right now Belarus is open for travel through the land borders or by air if you are on visa-free or on a visa. My recent clip about how to get a visa is just down below. I'll link it up along with my donation links. By the way, thanks to everybody who is supporting the channel. It's really cool. It's really vital to get the whole thing going this way. If you have $5, $10, $25 to help the channel, that would be great. And if you're watching all of the videos without a single dollar of support, just don't tell me you've been watching all my videos and never donated. That doesn't work very well, if you know what I mean. Back to our things. Unfriendly countries, Canada, US, UK, whatever countries put sanctions against Belarus, their citizens don't really have any maltreatment or any special treatment on arrival. Britons get visas at the airport, Americans get visas at home and travel over here, Canadians, absolutely nothing. So your worries about anything, rather awful rumors that I won't even be commenting on from local girlfriends mostly, about arrests, phone tapping and all the crap. There may be some truth about this if someone's phone is tapped or anything, if they're involved in political opposition activity, which is almost close to zero right now. But casual visitors, if they don't have any, let's say, questionable background with secret services and everything, normal people just travel normally, guys. That's just, you know, that's a bit too much. One out of two basic warnings to the normal traveler that I would like to accent on. Firstly, bring in your own cash. Euro, dollars, doesn't matter, as long as they're the basic currencies that we use here. Of course, they're not used in daily life, in shops or anything, but if you bring a wad of dollars or euro, you'll be able to supply yourself with local pocket money and exchange rubles back into dollars if you are done with your visit and if you have some cash left. Cards, banks are now having more and more issues. Firstly, foreign cards may fail at some businesses because their servicing bank is sanctioned. And secondly, the local banks are applying again commissions of some 15% to withdrawals from the ATMs or operators to foreign cards. So this may not be comfortable if you are running out of cash supply. So if you're coming for a week, make it $1,000 plus, including your accommodation basically. And second warning is find your own rental through perhaps Google Maps, contacting businesses that are listed as apartments, rentals here and there. It's quite obvious and it's pretty easy, it's pretty doable. Their online availability isn't really up to date because there's no booking.com essentially. So until you've contacted a certain business, you won't really be able to see if they're really booked out. Speaking of exchange rates, the internet exchange rate that quotes around 3.3 rubles against the dollar is internet exchange rate. If you find any of these locally, I'll be very impressed. Right now, the US dollar is about 2.6 rubles against the dollar. And the currency is somewhat available in the exchange points, although you'll be interested in the opposite. Since I'm shooting this little thing in the bar, let's talk politics a little bit. That's what Belarusian men do. I'm not a political or military expert, but it seems that the West is generously helping Ukraine, but on a pace that is kind of good enough to keep the flame going. It seems like the supplies are mostly not exactly cutting-edge stuff, although we of course have to accent the we have to recall Elon Musk's Starlink satellite system, communication system, and other devices and gadgets that are supplied by means of state and private communication, a lot of charities, a lot of fundraisers, which is kind of good because Ukrainians are fighting for their land, and I very much support them in this, let's say, cause, mostly morally, of course. And still, it seems like the West is paying Russia more for the energy supplies, much more, ways more, many times more than the stuff that they deliver to Ukraine, cleaning up their warehouses to get the new supplies. And here's the funny thing to me as a, ordinary taxpayer. The weapons, the old-time weapons like those armored personnel carrier which are stuck in Greece, was it, or in Germany, because they can't really supply them there, and there's software update of some kind. They're going to be shipped away, and the new supplies aren't coming in a considerable time. And it seems that the EU armies are making space in their own warehouses before the new stuff comes supplied, and it's going to take a while before it comes in because of the COVID delays and other things. And an ordinary European taxpayer may wonder what the hell happens if Putin decides to rebuild his little Soviet Union and then take over the Baltics and other things, in light of his recent statement about him, like Peter the Great, collecting, assembling the Russian lands, which is a very arguable theory, to put it mildly, I would say. As a tour guide in Belarus, I was pretty much interested in history. I guess I still am interested in history. So I would say that the Russian Empire, built by Peter the Great, using all the technology and training he got in Western Europe to build the fleet and everything, was in a way a positive move to the empire. Not necessarily to the new satellites of the empire, as it always happens with colonies and newly acquired lands, but generally the huge state went on lands, resources and manpower. In today's civilization, in today's world, I guess these are the very last factors to look into, and assembling lands like you're some kind of a middle-aged warlord doesn't seem super cutting edge to me personally. So I'm not running the Kremlin, of course, on the other hand, and he never checks with me, but I think it's bullshit. Today you have to use your brain, and maybe sitting on a place like as small as Japan, and I'm sorry if there are any Japanese hurt by this remark, but they're using their brain intelligence, their technology, and actually conquer the world this way, not with the bloody outdated tanks, by the way. Speaking of world politics, alliances and crisis and everything, it seems like the widely circulated news about the Ukrainian EU application basically has been put under the table somewhere, and even France has officially issued a statement that membership is not coming in the coming years, essentially. So it seems like EU is not super keen to embrace Ukraine and give 100% of its real support to the country. Although, from your perspective, it may seem different, so if you share your opinion in the comments about how actively the West is actually helping Ukraine, could it be better? Could the support be stronger? Please share your opinion. That would be interesting to read if you're in the EU countries especially. Americans, of course, you're welcome as well. These days, it's also very popular to say that Russia has triggered world famine crisis and everything, and I've just checked the world statistics casually. Ukraine seems to be number 7 grain exporter to the world, and its markets are far from EU markets. They're mostly south-oriented markets. I'm not a food expert either, thank God, so I'm not here to judge about what's happening, but it seems like while the Westerners were locking themselves down and masking themselves up and storing containers, overpriced containers in one part of the world with undertrained truck drivers or retired truck drivers, making shortage of drivers in the other end of the world, Russia, with its rusted tanks, has created the world logistics crisis. Well, the question is, where is the new variant? somehow out of a sudden the new variant of COVID is not there. If you've heard of one, you can also make a remark in the comments if you agree with me. Biden has signed a decree to extend sanctions against Belarus. In 2006, America adopted a sanctions package against the country because of the lack of democracy, unfair elections, and several dozen individuals, several dozen businesses were affected by these sanctions, and exports have been limited considerably because of the American pressure. Transit banks will not accept operations, and generally, on a large scale, these sanctions don't seem to be affecting the country too badly from the taxpayer's point of view. Your money transfers, your payments, your donation systems and platforms are pretty much affected because you can't get money. On a larger scale, I guess the politicians can find a way to transfer money the way they want to, in the amounts that they see fit. So I guess it's not super helpful. And of course, top shots cannot travel to America anymore, which doesn't seem to hurt their holiday plans. Belarusian hackers claim they have chopped into one of the police databases. Well, this is not necessarily a breakthrough report, but one of the recent achievements of theirs was the Belarusian railway system, which delayed logistics in a certain part of the country, if you know what I mean. Some corrupt Western media were reporting on this and evaluated this little hack as an input of the Belarusians into the anti-war activities from our side, let's say. Speaking more seriously about the economy, IT sector keeps losing people, and although the number of the companies that make members in the high technology park increase by and by, their GDP share increases even further. It reached about 5% of the country's GDP last year, in 2021, if I got things right. The February outflow of the personnel may not yet even be reflected in the statistics, and I guess the statistics for the next quarter is going to be less promising. For now, IT, with the failure of other now recently sanctioned sectors and crisis-affected sectors like transportation and the logistics and construction, seems to be coming forward in on the list of the country's money earners. So IT still remains a big thing here for Belarus. Constructions, the apartment search, the apartment hunt continues. Next week I'll be very much looking for some upper middle class range flat for a client, and you'll be getting some pictures about what's on the market and how much it costs. If you can support the channel in light of this and support the soonest release of this clip, that would be really welcome. Speaking of the property loans, Belgazprom Bank has announced, one of the banks over here announced the renewal of the property loans. The interest rate for these property loans will make some Americans cry. To almost said 2.6, 26% interest rate, 25.9 I believe, and you can pay it within 20 years. And the funny thing is that applicants eligible for this loan are aged between 18 and 64. So if for some reason you have enough money, you have enough salary balance to take a loan, one of those, from the bank aged 18, I guess by the time you're 64, you'll probably be done with that payment. Now, these loans, and other banks launch their own loans with all sorts of interest rates, which are double-digit loans. They are a perfect explanation why Belarusians never smile. But generally, we're very kind and nice people inside there, so that's more like a misconception. Government has declared it's going to cut on the checks of the businesses, meaning the regular businesses will have less pressure from the bureaucracy about their fire extinguisher not being red enough, or their cash operating machine being dusty or something like this. It's a bit hard to comment on this because my businesses, well, my business, I was self-employed for 10 years as a tour guide, was never checked. So it's really hard to tell how troublesome they are. But I guess in catering, like this place in October Street, it's a little bit stressful, and all sorts of guys are coming in claiming that your place may be harmful or dangerous to public, so they have to check this and this and this. And basically speaking, the number of these checks is declared to go down, and it's gonna make the world to the businesses, whatever businesses still have still survived. And we may see it as a positive change. However, the businesses have always complained, and that's from the media, it's not just what I heard of. The businesses have always complained that the country's budget is being adopted with the amount of money in mind that's going to be harvested through fines and penalties. Certain violation from a person would bring a fine upon this person, but business violation in the same field will bring a 10-time higher fine. So that's how the state earns money over here. It's not that businesses are under extreme pressure. I cannot say this happens, this is a daily thing. Larger operators are sometimes complaining about some innovations or some kind of charges from the state side that are not quite there. I guess some of you, very few of you, will have met some bigger players from Belarus, and they have their stories to share. I have no such stories. I'm mostly self-employed. For the first time in history this year, Belarus is going to introduce the tax for the first owned apartment. Some people who own 2 apartments or more, several hundred people own 4, 5, 6 apartments across Belarus, not necessarily just in Minsk. They were paying taxes from the second property and more, but today every single property is being charged, and they say vaguely that the average tax in Minsk is going to be tied up to the cost of a square meter, and an average flat or 1 bedroom of some 50 meters will cost a person 50 rubles a year, a 50 ruble tax. By the end of the year, they're going to make one single tax list for property, land and car. Car is going to be the most expensive thing. And of course, again, Americans may cry to hear that my own land tax, 1 hour away from Minsk is my place, loses me some 10 euro per year, 10 euro, $10, about the same thing. And basically, my expats are paying the same money in the shape of tax to rent their land and the house tax. Combined, it's less than $10, basically. And perhaps the last entertaining and somewhat funny news of the day is that Russia and Belarus are going to cooperate in the revival of electronics industry. In the Soviet Union, we were all told at school that Belarus was making some chips and stuff, and those microchips were probably this big. I don't know about chips much, but they obviously screwed away all these things from the Soviet times, the heritage of the Soviet times that was mostly military oriented. They obviously had all sorts of things inside the missile or whatever stuff they produced here and still are producing. But as the politicians officially stated, we have blew it all away, so we have to restore it, and in light of the crisis and sanctions, we'll have to rebuild all of this. I'm against the war, guys. I'm against the sanctions. Please tell me what you think under the video. I'm very much against the clowns who say Belarus is a crime participant, blah, blah, blah. I have something to tell them as well in light of what happened in 2020. So if you have any feedback, if you have any questions, please ask them underneath there, and help the channel if you can. Travel reasonably. Hope to see some of you in Minsk someday during this summer, and stay safe and all the best. See you in Minsk later. Cheers.